Good Gab, sponsored by Skilskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. Today, we're here at the Spokane Library with Lerria Schuh, Executive Director of the Smith-Barbieri Progressive Fund. Welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, I know I'm on the board of Catholic Housing, and so developing, our hotel project up on Sunset.
Yes.
It's just an exciting moment, right?
Yes.
We can really move the needle here. There's funds that not just are available to make new shelter space or make new program space, but funds to keep them going.
Yes. Yes, I know. What a concept, right? And what's so encouraging about what's happening is that the folks who are involved are doing it with compassion, which is something that lacks, not just in this community, but really in our world. And I think, the United States as a whole, and not to be, a Debbie Downer on our country, but we have a tendency to believe in pulling yourself up your bootstraps, and sometimes forgetting that folks need that hand up.
Often everyone does, right?
Yeah.
One of my things I just can't stand is the self-made person. Doesn't
Never.
work for me. It just doesn't happen, right?
No.
Yeah.
We've all been lifted up so many
Yes.
times in so many ways. And why does that have to end when we're kids? I've been thinking about that a lot lately as kids are going to school this week and everybody's rallying together to help the moms that are sending kids back off to school, and the craziness of soccer schedules and all of that and all the things that we have to help. But we turn 18 in this country and suddenly you're legal in ways you're probably not ready for, and parents are no longer involved, and we have this way of cutting off the help.
Right.
When you turn a number.
On this arbitrary number.
On this arbitrary number, and then you get another arbitrary number when you're 21. And so why is that? When you're 32, you're 35, you're 65, you still need help and you still need to be loved.
That absolutely you do. That happens in the disability community that we're involved in at Skilskin. When you're kind of aging out of high school, maximum around 20 years old, it's it's over.
Yep.
Same thing,
and then just randomly you're supposed to have everything that you need and be able to do everything on your own, and I don't buy that.
Me either. Well, so tell me more about that. What can communities do to kind of rally around that moment, where that transition is taking place into adulthood, and what should we be thinking about?
Well, I think we need to think about the longevity and sustainability of communities of folks who need it, especially longer than what we've deemed the norm, that arbitrary number of 18 or whatever. And we need to take a step. I think as a community as a whole, as society, we need to take a step back and say, hey, some of these communities can't be tied to a number. We need to look at sustainability for them, and how can we help them be their best self for the entirety of their life? And what does that mean? Folks with disabilities is a great example. Foster kids,
Right.
Same situation. It's like, oh, so they had help till they were out of high school or 18. Now they're just magically gonna know how to do everything on their own.
Yeah.
How short-sighted is that?
Yeah, because it's not real, right?
Right.
I just came across a number statistic around foster kids that 1 in 4 are going to experience homelessness at some point in their adult life. I'm like, that was a shocking number for me.
Shocking, right? Yeah, it is shocking, and it's very, very real. We work with Treehouse out of Seattle that does a lot of great work for foster kids, and helping with the graduation success rate, because that's a challenge also for foster kids, just being able to get to that graduation of high school, right? And again, it's like, why? I don't know. Was born apparently, or maybe my parents did something magical, but I just really believe we should always help people, and that's what life is about. It's not about your skyscraper, your fancy car, your big house. It's really about, what did we do for each other? How did we lift each other up?
Well, so let's talk about you a little bit more then. With this heart for service is what I'm hearing. How did that happen? And tell us more.
No, I really do think that you're really just born that way. I can remember being in junior high and saying, well, I want to be a big sister in the Big Brothers and Sisters program because I just think it would be really great to help someone who's not as fortunate as me. Now, how did I know at 7th grade that I was fortunate? We weren't wealthy, but we were in middle class. I had never really wanted for anything, and I had a healthy, happy home. And somehow I just realized that it wasn't that way for everybody. And I lived in a small town in Montana where, we didn't see homelessness every day. We didn't see violent crimes and things like that. So I honestly can't tell you how it came to be other than I have always been wired that way. And spent the better part of 25 years in the entertainment business, which is super weird considering we're talking about helping people, because I love the entertainment business, but it doesn't really help people
Okay.
in the same way that we're talking about on these other subjects. And so when I made the career switch into doing this, I really feel like I finally came home.
Right.
Because I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, is I'm supposed to be helping people however I can, and I'm super fortunate to be able to do so.
Well, we have a similar story of that. I was, a salesperson for a long time in the medical device world.
Mm.
And, in that way, you're supposed to be helping people.
Uh-huh.
I was really selling plastic.
Yeah.
And once I, got into the nonprofit space, it's like, oh, there's this.
Yeah.
And you described it as, found your home. I felt the same.
Yeah.
I'm home.
Yeah. Found your people.
Yes. Yeah. Our tribes.
Yeah.
Well, so Montana, how'd you make it to Spokane?
I went to Gonzaga University. So I started at Carroll College and wanted to have a degree in marketing, and they didn't have that at the time. And so I transferred over to Gonzaga and finished there and stayed.
Carroll College in Billings?
Helena.
Okay.
Yeah. I have 2 kids that are, one that just graduated from there and another that's a senior there now. So
nice. So Gonzaga, and then you just never left, huh?
just never left, got married here and stayed. And, I started working for the Best of Broadway when I was in my early 20s. And that's not the kind of job that you can do anywhere, particularly in Montana, because
Right.
national touring Broadway shows don't go into Montana. And so I stayed a lot because of the job. And my husband worked at Sacred Heart as a mental health counselor for children. And at the time, 30 years ago, when we were starting out our careers, the particular type of counseling he was doing was also not available in Montana. Otherwise, we probably would have gone back. I love Montana.
It's a beautiful, beautiful state. So
Yeah.
what part? by the way?
Helena.
Okay, Helena.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have
Born and raised
operations in
Helena.
Great Falls.
Oh, good.
And so I'll make sure to drive through there, and
Yeah.
the Missouri River there. I have some very,
So
it's close to my heart.
Yeah, beautiful space. Yeah.
Well, Spokane, we're happy to have you here.
Oh,
Glad you stuck
thank
around.
you. Yeah. I've actually lived here longer now than Montana, so I do call Spokane home. So
Well, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, tell us more about the entertainment world. I think our listeners would be interested in hearing, how does that work?
yeah, it's polar opposite of what I'm doing now. But we at the time West Coast Entertainment was a presenter in Spokane, and we brought national touring Broadway shows to the INB or Spokane Opera House or First Interstate, whatever you know it by, and eventually branded out and went into regional, doing some regional work as well as doing work in Hawaii and Alaska and Las Vegas. And I handled the marketing and PR for that. Really wonderful experience. I got to travel all over the country and see all the big shows and met a lot of famous people along the way. And it was a really, really fabulous experience. Coming into this work now, I love my entertainment friends. I love the work that I did. I don't wish it any different because I had such a great experience. Although I find that now, and I don't say this from a place of bragging, it's really for context. I got to meet people like Oprah Winfrey, which was
Really?
super exciting. But the people that I know now who are working on the streets and doing the really hard work, those are the heroes. Like that is really, those people I just have so much admiration for. And yeah, it was fun to meet really famous people, but the heroes of today are the ones that don't get talked about, and they're the ones who are out there doing the work.
Absolutely.
And not just, I mean, I mentioned streets and homeless. It's not just that. It's folks who are doing the loving care of folks with disability, and it's the people who are standing up for youth and really getting into the nitty gritty of that kind of work where I'm just in awe.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear that, like from, the shiny.
Mm-hmm.
As Americans, we often, I think, are pointed in that
Yep.
direction. But yeah, like the folks on the ground, the ones who are moving the needle for humanity,
Mm-hmm.
our community,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, bless them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're I just on a personal level, I think about Spokane and the evolution of our community is
Mm-hmm.
there's a point in time for me when those Broadway shows started coming here
Mm-hmm.
that I saw the culture of our community change.
Oh, for
So
sure.
that was an interesting moment just to see the evolution over time. I've been here my whole life. I've had to spend a little time in Seattle, but got to come back real quick.
Yeah.
What have you seen over your 30 years here?
Oh, gosh, it is so different. When I was a Gonzaga student, downtown was quiet as can be at night. I mean, nothing was going on. And the time that I went to school, the Broadway series had only been in place maybe 5 or 6 years, not even that many, 4 years. And so it was still very new. And culturally, when you bring those larger shows in, it does things like allow you to um, use it as a selling point for businesses coming to town and say, "Oh, we have these big shows." And I think that helps in a lot of ways. But the food scene is
Yes.
so good
Yes, it
here
is.
and has grown so much. All of the independent restaurants that we have now, and martini bars and all of those things has grown so much. And I think there's a lot more art here than there was back in the early 90s. So much emphasis put on that through Spokane Arts and some of the good organizations that are doing that work. Terrain, really bringing some diversity to what's available to
I
people, and
love
it's
the work that they're
exciting.
doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
from incubating businesses to, taking up storefronts
Yeah.
and putting, art installations there. I'm like, wow, this changes just the feel
It
of
does.
things.
It changes the
Hmm.
feel, and it gives an opportunity for all kinds of people to grow and have innovative ideas be seen by all, and it's exciting.
Well, that's a real focus around your work today, right? Is,
Hmm.
the equity. How do you help people, you know, be in that equitable place?
Hmm. Hmm. We work quite differently than a lot of funders in that we look specifically for small new nonprofits, particularly those that have not been invested in, particularly those that are when possible, being created by marginalized communities, BIPOC members who have a really, really great idea and the experience and capability to bring their idea to fruition if they just had the funding that they need. And so those are the kinds of things we look for. And I say that that's different from other funders because the risk that's involved with that is not usually something that's palatable
Right.
for a larger funder. And so we like to take those risks. That's kind of what we're all about, is saying, yeah, we think you've got a great idea and we believe in you. And if it doesn't work out, we will have all tried. And that I feel so fortunate
Yeah, that seems
to
pretty
be able to
transformative.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really comes from Sharon Smith and Don Barbieri, who are the trustees of our foundation who make all this happen. And that's their belief. And to be able to do that, I mean, some examples are a lot of folks know Rick Clark with Giving Backpacks.
Yeah, he was our first guest on this podcast.
Yeah. So we were his original funder and his fiscal sponsor. And fiscal sponsorships we do with these new nonprofits where they usually need a year, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, where somebody's helping facilitate all their donations. And of course, they can rely on our 501c3 as they get theirs developed. And that was the case with Rick, is we provided some substantial seed money to get him started. And then was his fiscal sponsor for that first year while he developed his board and he got all of the nuts and bolts going in the right places. And then we incubate them and then we let them fly. And letting them fly is always the hard part.
Oh, I can imagine. But shoot, well, that moment, yeah, because it's so hard to, like, if you have a great idea, that's step one, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
actually implementing it is so difficult. It's
Yes.
amazing.
It
I didn't
takes
know that
time.
that's exactly, what the fund was all about.
Yeah, so that's a piece of what we do. Feast World Kitchen is another example. We were their original funder and fiscal sponsor, and it's been so fun to watch them grow and the wonderful work that they're doing for our community. Not just building up the refugees and immigrants, but with the work that they're doing as chefs, but also to enlighten our community with all the different kinds of foods and
Amazing food.
amazing food, and really giving folks the chance to experience that, I think, is wonderful for our community. Another recent fiscal sponsor is Compassionate Addiction Treatment. Have you heard of them?
No.
So really innovative idea by some women with previous lived experience of homelessness, and they are a organization that helps homeless folks with their substance abuse disorders recovery. And so they're not a shelter. They're open in the day only. So the folks that they're working with on recovery live on the streets. And it is super innovative. We're not aware of anywhere else in the state, much less this entire region, that is doing the work in the way that they are. I mean, it's medically assisted treatment. So they have folks who come in who meet with doctors and nurses, and I don't have all the right language for the medications that they use, but they do some of that medical assisted detox, as well as all of the group therapy and the peer counseling, which is so important to in helping folks through their recovery, and then eventually getting them into housing
And meeting them, where they're at.
meeting them where they're
Unhoused.
at. Yep, unhoused, and it is an amazing thing. And when they started, it was just an idea, and again, original funder and fiscal sponsor, and we have supported them quite a bit over the last 3 years, and will continue to do so because the work that they're doing is so important, and it's so different.
Totally. Could be transformative, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We were both at the Hello for Good event.
Yes.
What was that, last week?
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, and some of the numbers or statistics that were thrown out, like 80% of homelessness issues, around, drugs and mental illness. Is that the numbers that you guys are seeing?
No.
Okay. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners more.
Yeah. So some of those numbers were, as a former marketing person, I can say that we can make statistics look any way that we want to send our own message, right? So, and when you look at the national statistics around homelessness, which are coming from studies that are done across the country, unbiased studies, for no reason other than finding out what is this really about, the number one reason for homelessness is lack of housing. And that might come then from unemployment, domestic violence, mental illness, and substance abuse. And so the idea that gets pushed out there all the time is that people are houseless because they have a mental illness or they have a substance abuse problem is not necessarily correct. Now, does mental illness come along from living on the streets? Does it get exasperated? Absolutely. Are there lots of folks who have substance abuse challenges that are homeless? Absolutely. But is it the substance abuse that made them homeless? Not 80% of them by any stretch of the imagination. We have just as many people housed who have substance abuse problems.
Sure, absolutely.
As unhoused. It's more evident on the streets because of all of the other challenges that come with living out there. But yeah, I don't agree with those kinds of numbers.
Well, thank you for that perspective, because, as this conversation evolves, and our community is going to have to get together and partner, like we said in the beginning, we are. So we have this moment, and as long as we can, continue to maybe challenge each other and make sure that we're all pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Maybe we can solve this. This is a solvable issue in my mind.
Yeah. Have you seen the videos from Housing and Help?
No.
Housingandhelp.org. So I'll give you the information, but the second episode just came out. Gavin Cooley is the host, who was CFO for the city of Spokane for 18 years. So he's worked under Democrats, he's worked under Republicans, and the series is put together by Spokane Low Income Housing Consortium, of which I'm the Secretary Treasurer for this year, and then also presented by Corner Booth Media. And the series really takes a thoughtful approach to how is it that we got here with homelessness, and where is it that we can go from here, and ultimately will provide a solution um, model that's based off of success, specifically in Houston. And it was Houston was not talked about at last week's meeting, but Houston has reduced their houseless population by over 65%. They've done
That's a
it.
huge
It's a
number.
huge number. They've done it by looking at affordable housing with the help, right? So people get really upset about housing first numbers, and statistics show, as they showed last week in California, when you take one little place, you can look at folks that have put together housing first models that haven't produced the solutions. Well, my question would be, is the housing first model, did it include wraparound services, meeting people where they
Right.
were? And traditionally you'll find that no, they didn't. And so what has to happen is you have to have the housing, but you have to have the help. You have to have the help right there, because you can't just put somebody into four walls and a roof and say, oh, just like when you turned 18, you're good.
Great
It
point.
doesn't work that way. And so the video series talks about the necessity and what that might look like. And I've been able to be involved through Slick, and that's with that video series, and I'm so excited about it because I also see what's coming, which is the solutions model. And we have
Yeah.
two episodes out so far, but I highly encourage you to watch them. Very high quality and really engaging, and it's not inflammatory towards anyone. The idea of the video series is to really be unbiased and just say this is what's happening. And like I said, the second episode just came out, and it's 20 minutes long, I think. And
Oh, I know what I'm doing this afternoon.
yeah, it's
And our listeners
good.
too. You heard it right here. Let's
It's
watch
good.
this, see
Yep.
what's happening. I know something I'm really proud of is Gonzaga Family Haven,
Hmm.
the new low-income housing model for at least Catholic Charities, where
Yep.
we are including, services in a
Yep.
really transformative way.
Very much so. And in a beautiful
Mm.
setting.
True.
And the resources are right there. And one of the things that excites me about Gonzaga Family Haven is the concentration on making sure that those kiddos are getting the education that they need, and that they're getting the support that they need outside of the school to make sure that they can continue on in their education and get everything that's done. And I think that's so great. And you walk around Gonzaga Family Haven and you see the attention to detail, like the art, the fish, I don't know, banister railings, I guess you would
Yes.
call them, and the splash pad, and the playground area, and it's so wonderful. And why shouldn't people have access to that? Recreation and feeling a sense of pride, places for kids to play, places for families to gather, all of that is so important.
Something that really struck me in that time is my wife grew up in low income housing in Alaska,
Mhm.
and it was a shame to get off the bus
Mhm.
at that particular building.
Mhm.
And, as we've talked about this conversation, like, why can't you live in a nice place?
Right,
Right?
right. We're the wealthiest country in the
Mm.
world. Why can't we let everybody have some sort of sense of pride?
Absolutely. And what comes from that, you get to grow on a personal level, especially a child, right?
Mhm.
They're learning who they are
Mhm.
and forming their identity. And if we just take one element out, like shame because I live in the worst housing in
Mhm.
Spokane, just take that off the table.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree. And it's so frustrating because people forget. We try to say a lot, don't judge because we don't know somebody else's story. But we really need to take that to heart, because when people who have a belief that you have to pull yourself up by by your bootstraps, when you're saying that to someone, you have no idea what they're having to go through to do that, and sometimes it's just not possible. And why do they have to live in a warehouse shelter, or scrape together pennies to get across town in a bus to get to their appointments, when we could just help them and give them a sense of pride and give them a sense of ownership and feeling good about who they are, and a sense of hope, where they can then get to the point where they can have a healthy, sustainable life. Like, what is wrong with that?
Yep, don't have an answer to that one because
I
you're.
know.
I believe that vision. We can make that happen.
Yeah, I think so. And
It's
I think,
Spokane, right?
yep, exactly. Spokane has done big things. And when you look at things like Hoop Fest or Bloomsday or, the love for Gonzaga basketball from everyone, no matter what school you went to, if we get behind something, we really have a tendency to make it big and make it good. And we're at a pivotal point because we've grown a lot. Some of our little city challenges have become big city challenges, but there is more funding available right now than
Yep.
there has ever been before in so many different ways. And we have a lot of really, really smart people. If we could just come together on what we agree upon and how to get there, we could be a leader in solving some of these critical issues.
Well, what you're describing takes leadership too.
Hmm.
So who's gonna take the torch here?
I don't know. I don't know. Um, some of it has to be more collaborative, and some of the ways that we fund things needs to be looked at strongly. I don't have faith in a lot of our leadership right now, our city leadership right now, or our county leadership for that matter. I hope that there's going to be some changes because we need changes in leadership because we need to make changes in our structures, and there's going to have to be some hard decisions that are made, and it ultimately, no matter what is decided, there's going to be people that aren't happy.
Certainly, big things. It happens
Yeah,
every time.
yeah, but if we could get more people together and figure out where that middle road is, where we know we all want the same outcome, maybe for different reasons, but if we can figure out in that middle portion some give and take instead of just putting up walls and saying, I don't want to do that. We could really make some good changes.
Well, I'm hoping to see who's gonna step up
I
for
am
that.
too.
What's the role of city government from your perspective in that? Can
In
they pull everyone together?
Well, I think that
Are we gonna do it to citizens?
yeah, I think it's going to have to be organizations and citizens. The example, not to use it as the only example, but it is most prominent in my mind, is what Empower Health Foundation has done with the commerce dollars and how they're gathering everybody from all the different organizations together and starting to figure things out. Um, there's no reason why a city leader couldn't have done that, but they didn't, and they haven't, and historically they haven't. And so some of that is because government is set up the way that it is set up, and it's long and it's tedious, and there's lots of red tape, and there's some challenges that come with that inherently that prevent, I think, some collaborations. But that's why we need to look to citizens and organizations and community leaders, and really the business sector is part of that.
Absolutely.
So hopefully they will come, and I think they're trying. I mean, I think Hello Gopher is trying. Um, like I said, we have some different beliefs in how they are going about that, but hopefully we all continue to work together and we'll get there.
Well, inviting people to the table. I think our listeners would like to know a little bit more about what is Empire Health Foundation doing. Do you know how they're pulling people together?
Well, I just know that
Hmm.
because I've been part of some of these meetings that I was just at one last night where they have invested time and personnel particularly for these right-of-way commerce dollars, where they have an individual that they have hired that is going to be the project manager, so to speak, of this entire thing, and the funding that they have been given by Commerce to disperse. And so they recognize and have a very strong community partnership ethic going into this. So I can only really speak to that part of it. If you haven't talked with Zeke Smith, you should. He is their leader and is fairly new here, and is really made some great changes and is really collaborative. So it gives me a lot of hope that leaders like that can help bring people together.
Well, thank you for that. And Zeke, if you're listening, come on the show. We want to hear
Yeah,
more from you.
yeah, yeah,
Well, a few more questions for you,
yeah.
and just thank you so much for being here. I'm just wondering, what are you most excited about for Spokane's future right now, just from your personal perspective?
Well, I think that there are a lot of younger voices coming up, and I think part of the younger generation stand a little stronger in their convictions for what is right. Maybe more so than my generation or some of those generations on either side of mine, where we're a little more cautious on controversy and wanting to be more careful to please everyone. And as the younger leaders come up and there's more opportunity to stay here and more reasons to stay here, like the food scene, like the cultural scene,
The art.
the art, everything that's coming together that's going to keep younger generations here, that will help grow that kind of leadership that will stay strong in convictions, that I really believe and see a lot of young people who want to do the right thing for the right reason and want to help people up.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I'm thinking about even my own kids,
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about the environment. Some of they're really standing up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one more question.
Yeah.
What's inspiring you right now, or who's inspiring you?
Oh, it's definitely the folks who are working the hardest with the populations that need help. And as a funder, it would be really easy for us to just sit back and, write checks and, stay behind a desk, so to speak. But I try to roll up my sleeves and, in our hot days recently, I've carried, 20-pound bags of ice and brought 400 pounds of ice to these cooling spots and whatnot. And I like to do that because I'm reminded and I'm so inspired by the people who are doing the hard work and have the know-how and the lived experience to say, this is how we're going to get through this. And these are the changes that we need. And those people are super inspiring to me.
Well, yeah, it fills the cup to be in service.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, listeners, if you're thinking about something to do, how to get involved, just go out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
something. Connect with an organization that's, close to your heart and help change the world for all of us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us
Absolutely.
today.
Yes.
Yeah, any parting thoughts?
Oh gosh, no, but just thank you for doing this, and thanks for all your organization does for folks. I just admire you all and are so grateful for what
Thanks
you
for
do.
being part of the solution.
Trying.